She slammed her SUV door so hard it made the whole street echo. "You can't just build that thing without permission," she yelled, pointing at my brand new wooden privacy fence like it was a crime scene. I was standing in my own backyard, still holding a drill in my hand, sweat dripping down my neck. "Karen, this is my land," I said, trying to keep calm. But she wasn't having it. She pulled out her phone, squinting at me like she was some kind of sheriff. "I'm calling the cops. You're violating HOA Code Section 14B. I didn't even live under her HOA. My house was one of the few outside their jurisdiction, but that never stopped her before. Last month, she put a fake warning notice on my door, claiming my grass was too high. The month before that, she told my wife our car lowered the neighborhood's value. But this time, she'd gone too far. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars rolled up. The officers stepped out looking confused. Karen ran toward them, waving her hands like she'd just caught a fugitive. "That man is building without approval. He's destroying the neighborhood's uniform look," she shouted. The younger cop looked at me, then at my fence. "Sir, can we talk?" "Sure," I said, wiping my hands on my jeans. "But before that, you might want to know this fence is on private property. I've got the county plat map and permit right inside." Karen crossed her arms, smirking. "He's lying. He does this all the time. Thinks he's above the rules." That's when my wife came out holding a folder. Calm, confident. She handed the papers to the officer. "This is the property deed, and here's the county approval. We double-checked everything before building." The older cop flipped through the pages, then looked at Karen. His face changed instantly. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "this address isn't part of your HOA." Karen blinked fast, her lips trembling for a second before she snapped, "That can't be right. Everyone here follows the same rules." I could see the panic creeping up behind her eyes. She realized she might have just made a false report. Again. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, calm but firm. The officer turned back to me. "You're all good, sir. Sorry for the trouble." Then he looked back at Karen and said something. "I'll never forget, ma'am. You might want to stop calling 911 over personal disputes. Next time it could count as harassment." Karen's face went red. She grabbed her phone and stormed off toward her house, mumbling something about community standards. But as she walked away, she turned back and gave me that same cold, vengeful stare she always did before she tried something bigger. And something in my gut told me this wasn't over yet. Viral line. She called the cops on me for building a fence too. Bad the land she's standing on used to be mine. That night I sat on the porch, staring at the quiet fence under the soft glow of my yard lights. My wife was inside putting our son to bed, but my mind wouldn't rest. Karen's look when she left, cold, calculating, kept replaying in my head. I knew her type. People like her never stopped at embarrassment. They needed control, and she'd just lost it. By morning I found out I was right. My fence had a bright orange paper stapled to it. "Show violation, remove structure. Within 48 hours or face legal action." No signature, no logo, just the same fake authority tone I'd seen before. I peeled it off slowly, and sure enough, in small faded letters at the bottom was her name written in blue ink. Karen Miller, HOA president. I took a deep breath and said quietly, "You just crossed the line." When I got to my truck, I noticed something even worse. A citation tucked under the wiper, parking violation. But the kicker? It was written by the same woman. She'd printed fake city tickets now. My hands clenched around the paper. "She's losing it," I muttered. I went to the police station that afternoon to file a complaint. The officer at the desk sighed. "Karen Miller? Yeah, we've had reports. But unless you catch her in the act or get clear proof, it's hard to make it stick." So that's exactly what I decided to do. Get proof. I set up my new security cameras, facing every corner of the yard, including the spot near her property line. My wife wasn't happy about it. "You're letting her get to you," she said softly. "Let's just ignore her." "I can't," I said. "People like her don't stop until they're caught. And she's getting dangerous." That night around 2 a.m., my motion sensor light flicked on. I checked the feed, and there she was, Karen in her robe, creeping along my fence with a flashlight. She looked around, then pulled something from her bag. A can of spray paint. She started writing on the fence in bold red letters, "Violation property." My heart was pounding. I grabbed my phone and hit record through the security app. I didn't even have to go outside. I just whispered to myself, "Gotcha." The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She waved as she watered her plants, pretending innocence. But I'd already emailed the footage to the police. By noon, an officer was back at my place, same one from before. He watched the video, whistled under his breath, and said, "Well, she's in trouble now." But just as I started to feel relief, the officer's radio crackled. Dispatch reported a complaint from Karen's address. She was accusing me of threatening her life with a weapon. I froze, my wife gasped. The officer's expression went blank. "Sir, we're gonna need to talk." Viral line, "She vandalized my fence at 2 Amos and then called the cops saying I threatened her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Threatened her? With what? I asked, but the officer was already writing in his notepad. "Sir, we just have to follow procedure. She says you pointed a gun at her last night." My wife stepped forward, voice shaking. "That's insane." "He didn't even go outside." The officer looked uncomfortable. "I know, ma'am, but she's filed a statement. I'll need to confirm your side." I led him to my living room and showed the security footage again, every second of it. Me sitting inside, her outside, spraying my fence. The timestamp was clear. He leaned closer to the screen, then looked back at me, slowly nodding. "All right, this changes things." But just as he was about to leave, another car pulled up outside, a black sedan with tinted windows. 2 people stepped out wearing formal suits. One of them flashed a badge. "We're with the HOA Compliance Board," the woman said. "We received multiple complaints about your property." I almost laughed. "You've got to be kidding me." Karen came running from her porch, pretending to be the victim. Her voice trembled just enough to sound rehearsed. "That's him. He yelled at me and threatened me. I can't live like this anymore." The HOA agents glanced at me coldly. "Sir, we'll need to inspect your property immediately." I folded my arms. "You're not stepping foot on my land without a court order." Karen smirked. "That's not how this works. You people think you can just ignore community rules." The female agent pulled out a document and waved it in my face. "This is a temporary enforcement order." But the moment I looked at it, I saw something off. No county seal, no official watermark. Just a signature at the bottom, Karen Miller, acting HOA chair. I smiled, slow and steady. "You forged this, didn't you?" Karen's face went stiff. "Excuse me." The officer, still standing near the gate, took the paper and frowned. "Ma'am, this isn't a legal order. It's a personal letter." Karen's fake agents looked at each other nervously. The male one muttered, "Karen, you said this was approved." She snapped, "It was. He's just manipulating you all." The officer raised his hand. "Enough. Everyone stay right here." He called dispatch again, explaining the scene. Karen's face started losing color. Her little show was unraveling right in front of everyone. But before the officer could finish the call, one of the fake agents got back in his car and sped off. The female one followed, muttering something about not getting involved. Karen stood frozen in her driveway, trying to hold on to her last bit of power. "You'll regret this," she whispered. I looked her dead in the eye and said quietly, "No, Karen, you will." Viral line. She brought fake HOA agents to my yard, but I caught them before they could step foot on my land. The neighborhood felt different after that day, quiet but not peaceful. People avoided eye contact when I drove by, and I noticed curtains shifting every time I walked outside. Karen had started spreading her own version of the story. According to her, I was a dangerous man who threatened women and defied the law. I'd become the villain of her fantasy, and she was loving every minute of it. 3 days later, I found out how far she'd gone. My boss called me into his office, his tone uneasy. "I got a call from someone claiming to be a safety officer from your HOA, he said. "They said you're under investigation for a violent incident. You need to clear this up, man." My heart sank. She wasn't just trying to ruin my peace anymore, she was coming after my job. I clenched my jaw and said, "I'll handle it." That evening, I checked my mailbox and saw a thick envelope with HOA Legal Division written across it. Inside was a notice of civil violation, claiming I'd built unapproved structures, endangering community safety. The fine? $12,000. My wife's eyes filled with tears when she read it. "We can't pay this. What if they actually—" "They can't," I interrupted. "It's fake, just like everything else she's done. But now, I'm done playing defense. I pulled out my old laptop and opened a folder labeled Evidence. Every photo, video, and recording I'd taken over the last month, I had it all. But this time I added one more thing. Something I'd never told anyone, not even my wife. When I left the Army 6 years ago, I didn't just come home empty-handed. I worked part-time as a federal investigator. For a short while, land and property disputes. I still had access to legal channels, old contacts, and one badge I'd never returned. I'd kept quiet about it because I didn't want trouble. But now trouble had found me. That night I made a few calls. I sent copies of Karen's fake documents to a county contact I trusted. He said, "Give me 24 hours. The next morning, a white county SUV parked in front of Karen's house. She strutted outside in her robe, coffee in hand, until she saw who stepped out, a real enforcement officer. Not local, not HOA, county level. I watched from my porch as he handed her a sealed folder. She frowned, confused. Then I heard her shout, "This is ridiculous!" I was protecting our neighborhood. The officer's voice was calm but firm. "Ma'am, you're being investigated for falsifying county documents and impersonating legal authority." Her cup fell and shattered. For the first time, she didn't have words. My wife walked up behind me, whispering, "You did this, didn't you?" I looked at the fence she tried to destroy, the house she tried to take down, and said quietly, "No, she did this to herself." Viral line. She faked the law, so I showed her what real authority looks like. Karen's world started collapsing faster than she could fake another excuse. The county officer came back the next day with 2 deputies and an evidence folder, thick as a phone book. Half the neighborhood gathered on the sidewalks, whispering and recording on their phones. For once, all eyes weren't on me, they were on her. Karen stood in her driveway in that same silk robe, shouting, "This is harassment. You can't do this to me. I'm the HOA president." The officer kept his voice calm. "Ma'am, your HOA doesn't have jurisdiction here, and forging county documents is a criminal offense." The crowd gasped. Karen looked around, searching for someone, anyone, to defend her. But even her so-called HOA friends stayed silent. Everyone had seen enough of her games. I stood at the edge of my porch, arms crossed, just watching. Not gloating, not smiling, just letting justice breathe. The deputies read her rights as they placed her in handcuffs. She jerked her wrists and tried to twist free. "You people don't understand, he's dangerous. He built that fence without permission," one of the neighbors muttered under their breath. "That fence looks better than anything she's ever done for this place." A few people laughed quietly. As the police car pulled away, Karen's eyes locked on mine. For a moment, there wasn't anger anymore, just disbelief. Like she couldn't process that her power trip had finally met a wall she couldn't climb. Later that evening, Officer Daniels, the same one who'd handled every complaint, came by one last time. "You know," he said, leaning on the railing, "in all my years, I've never seen someone go this far just to feel in control." I nodded slowly. "People like her don't want peace. They want obedience." He smiled faintly. "Well, you handled it the right way. That footage, those documents, you saved yourself a world of trouble." Before he left, he said something that stuck with me. Funny thing. She claimed to represent a neighborhood she didn't even legally live in. Her house was never part of the HOA either. I froze. "Wait, what?" He shrugged. "Yep. County records say she filed her HOA paperwork on expired land rights. She's been enforcing rules she made up herself." I laughed under my breath. "She built her empire on a lie." He grinned. "And you just tore it down with the truth." That night, as the streetlights flickered and the neighborhood fell quiet again, I sat near my fence, running my fingers along the wood she'd tried to deface. My wife came out with 2 mugs of coffee and sat beside me. "She's really gone," she said softly. "For now," I replied. "But people like her always come back in different forms. That's why you keep your evidence ready." Viral line. She tried to rule a neighborhood she didn't even belong to, and the law finally caught up. Weeks passed, and the neighborhood felt lighter, like a dark cloud had finally moved on. Kids played outside again, people waved at each other, and for the first time in months, no one was afraid of being reported for leaving a trash bin out too long. Karen's house sat quiet, blinds shut. Her perfect little empire turned into an empty monument of fake authority. One evening, while watering my lawn, I saw a for sale sign go up in her yard. A small smile crept across my face. She was leaving. No more fake notices, no more shouting matches, no more pretending she ran the world. Just silence. My wife came out and leaned against the doorframe. "You think she learned anything?" she asked. I looked at the sign, the empty porch, and said, "People like her don't learn. They just move somewhere new to start over. But maybe this time, she'll think twice before messing with the wrong neighbor." As we talked, a white SUV pulled up. The county officer stepped out again, smiling. "Got good news," he said, handing me a folder. "The investigation's officially closed. You're clear. And looks like she's facing 3 separate charges: false reporting, document forgery, and harassment." My wife exhaled in relief. "So it's finally over?" He nodded. "For you, yes. For her, not even close." After he left, I sat by the fence one last time and thought about everything that had happened. The humiliation, the anger, the fear. It wasn't just about a fence anymore. It was about standing your ground when someone tries to strip away your peace. I remembered something my father used to say when I was a kid. Real strength isn't loud, it's calm when the storm hits. And that's exactly what I'd done. The next morning, a moving truck pulled into Karen's driveway. I watched from my porch as she stood by the truck, arms crossed, eyes avoiding mine. When our gazes finally met, I just nodded once, not out of spite, but closure. She looked away. As the truck rolled out, I whispered quietly, "Good riddance." Later, I added one small sign to my fence, the same one she once tried to destroy. It read, "Private property, respect boundaries." Not out of anger, but as a reminder that sometimes peace needs a wall to stand behind. The sun dipped low behind the houses, and the neighborhood was quiet again, this time for the right reasons. Viral line. She called the cops, forged laws, and faked power. But in the end, all I needed was the truth and a fence strong enough to stand. The end.